guys, good morning. Sorry for being extra sweaty. I just went on my mile and a half run. I try to do that basically every day, about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It's one of those things where, you get through the morning and you're feeling great, and then you just kind of start tuning out, like noon time, especially if, you're on an intermittent fasting diet, you don't eat breakfast in the morning, or if you do eat breakfast in the morning, it actually happens even worse because you're getting those sugar cravings because your body's running out of carbs. Anyway, so around 11 or 12, I try to go on a mile and a half run, just do it pretty intensely, get the heart rate back up, get the blood pumping, start feeling good for the rest of the day. So I just got back from that. I really wanted to talk about bulletproof coffee, this idea of putting essentially saturated fats in your coffee in the morning, blending it up, drinking that, and then skipping breakfast. It's a pretty I guess, hotly debated topic. People are really, really into it, or they're really against it. And there's a couple of reasons for why people act this way. I just want to touch on it really quick. If it's something you want to try, this will answer all your questions. And it's definitely a trend right now. If you've heard of Bulletproof, it's actually a company that David Asprey made. He's making millions and millions of dollars selling things like MCT oil, and certain types of coffee and things like that. And it's all built on this bulletproof coffee idea where you wake up in the morning and instead of having breakfast, instead of having toast and cereals and these kind of carbohydrate intensive breakfasts, instead you have a cup of coffee and you take a stick of butter, a chunk of butter, or some MCT oil or whatever it may be, and you drop it in there and you throw it in a blender and you're good to go for the next 6, 8, 10 hours feeling good. And what that's built on is essentially the same thing that a ketogenic diet is built on. So it's built on the idea of using fat as fuel instead of carbohydrates. This is radically different than what most people do. Most people rely on a constant intake of carbohydrates, and it must be constant because our bodies are inefficient at storing carbohydrates. What I mean by that is that the only places in our body that we can store carbohydrates are in our liver and in our muscle, essentially. And those stores are relatively finite, meaning that we can only store about half a day or a little bit more than half a day of carbohydrates to run on. So if we didn't eat for an entire day and we did our normal things, we didn't just sit around on the couch, we walked around, we did our workout, whatever it may be, went to work, our carbohydrate stores would be mostly depleted within 24 hours. So fat, on the other hand, is completely different. We have, huge, huge stores of fat energy in our body, even for the most lean people. And so, like, even super, super lean people can run, a marathon on just the energy in their body. Whereas if you took someone and depleted them of food for a day and then tried to make them go run on a marathon, they would bonk or crash, so to speak. And that's what happens when you use all your muscle glycogen, which is that stored carbohydrate, and use all of it. And then all of a sudden your body is forced to basically switch to fat metabolism. And most people's bodies are really inefficient at fat metabolism because we eat so many carbohydrates at a continual pace that the body never really needs to burn fat. So a lot of those enzymes downregulate, and that's why a lot of people have trouble losing weight. They cut calories, but they're not actually burning all that much fat because all they're really doing is they're burning the carbohydrate stores and they refill them, and they burn their carbohydrate stores and they refill them. And if you're at a caloric deficit, you will lose some weight, but at some point your metabolism, basically the amount of energy your body burns on a daily basis, will start to downregulate as well. And so you have to start eating less and less and less. And you've probably all heard of this. And I'm way off topic per usual, but it's good information to have. And so again, back to bulletproof coffee. I do it. I love it. And most people that are on intermittent fasting love it. And the reason why is because intermittent fasting is basically built on the idea of you eat a dinner and then you don't eat again until a late lunch the next day. So you go from dinner, you skip breakfast, and then you have a late lunch. And so you're basically fasting for about 16 hours. And what this is really good at is lowering insulin levels, and it's really good at boosting fat metabolism because that insulin is low and because your carbohydrate stores are depleted, especially if you're on a ketogenic diet and you're not eating many carbs in the first place. Your body is forced to burn fat for those 16 hours. So, bulletproof coffee basically in the morning, and this high fat coffee in the morning is basically going to mimic intermittent fasting, but still get you some calories for the day, still get you some fat to burn other than your body stores. And the reason for this is because that fat that you're basically blending in, whether it be ghee, grass-fed butter, MCT oil, that you're blending into the coffee, isn't going to raise your insulin levels, so it's not going to put a halt on fat metabolism. So your hormonal profile is going to be pretty similar to intermittent fasting just normally. But people like it because they like to drink it. They like the caffeine boost in the morning, get some alert, get some going. Caffeine actually will spark fat metabolism a little bit, so that'll help with that as well. Plus, there's a bunch of benefits of the actual butter or MCT oil in the bulletproof coffee for whatever it may be. You have omega 3s in the grass-fed butter. You've got a bunch of CLA and stuff like that in clarified butter. You've got MCTs, the C8s, the C10 triglycerides, and the MCT oil, which are great for brain health. So there's a lot of benefits to this. And so you're probably asking right now, like, well, why wouldn't I do this? You wouldn't want to do it if you're insulin resistant, right? So if you eat a diet that is typical of the standard American diet or the standard Western diet that is, heavy in processed foods, you eat out a couple times a week, you don't really care about sugar, you don't eat a lot of whole foods, it's more like packaged foods and stuff like that, you're going to be insulin resistant, quite frankly, and you're not going to be very good at burning fat. And so shoving a bunch of saturated fat into your morning is not going to be a great thing necessarily, because that fat's not going to be burned. It's especially true if you have a bulletproof coffee and then you go eat a bagel. That's another thing that I see people doing, is they don't understand that bulletproof coffee is meant to take the place of the first meal, not just be something you toss in the morning and then go have a bagel, because that bagel is going to be quickly digested. It's going to go right into the bloodstream as sugar. It's going to raise your insulin levels, and any raise in insulin levels is effectively going to shut down fat metabolism. And then you have all that saturated fat from your coffee in the morning just basically floating around your bloodstream, and it's going to be deposited as body fat, not burned. So major key, if you're going to do bulletproof coffee, it has to be paired with intermittent fasting. You can't have breakfast and bulletproof coffee. The only way you can get around that is if you had a high fat, moderate protein, very low carb breakfast. But at that point, it's kind of getting to the point of you're not really intermittent fasting anymore. You're kind of just on a ketogenic diet. But it is what it is. So the other reason why some people don't like it, specifically nutritionists and dietitians, they look at these basically population studies and they say that, okay, a lot of people are severely lacking in vitamins and minerals and general nutrition. And this all goes back to the standard American diet, people eating too many processed foods and not enough whole foods. And a lot of those processed foods are stripped of essential vitamins and minerals. So a lot of these nutritionists and dietitians are looking at these population studies saying, how can we get people to have a better status of chromium and of vitamin A and vitamin E and vitamin D, whatever. And then they say that, well, wait, if you skip breakfast and you just have coffee and some butter, that's not good, because you're skipping out an entire meal's worth of nutrients. Although butter has a few fat soluble vitamins, and coffee has some minerals and stuff like that, but it's not enough to really counterbalance a meal. And so a lot of dietitians and nutritionists make that their argument. Like, you shouldn't do bulletproof coffee because you're skipping out an entire meal's worth of nutrition, essentially. And so my counter to that is, again, they're right if breakfast was your primary meal for getting nutrition. So if you were like the 1% of people that have a like couple whole eggs and they're not cooked too much, and you got a bunch of spinach and you've got a whole salad on the side and you have an apple and whatever, and it's just this beautiful meal of whole foods and fruits and vegetables and some healthy fats and stuff like that, then yeah, you don't want to skip that. But most people don't. The typical, American breakfast is sugar, essentially, whether that be breakfast cereals that are super sugary, refined flour products like bagels and toast, juice, fruit juices. All these people are on these juice cleanses. They think juice is super healthy, but really juice is just glorified soda that happens to come from a fruit. But as soon as you strip the fiber out of the fruit, it becomes just insulin spiking sugar. So essentially, if you're swapping out fat and coffee for this sugar load of a standard American diet, do it. Like, that's great. Do it, because you're not really missing out on any of that nutrition, because that diet didn't have any nutrition in the first place. And the key here is that those big lunch and dinner meals are going to want to be heavy on fruits and vegetables and healthy whole foods. So that's kind of the big key here. Bulletproof coffee, this idea of intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast, it is good for people that do it correctly. If you're going to skip it and you're going to live a healthy lifestyle and you're going to focus on getting nutritious whole foods meals in your lunch and dinner, do it. You're going to love it, especially when your body does make that switch into fat metabolism. It might take a couple days, maybe even a week. That's why it's so good to pair intermittent fasting with the ketogenic diet, with the whole idea of bulletproof coffee, because they all really go hand in hand. One is going to kickstart the other, and they're all going to play off each other until you're this fat burning monster. You don't even eat carbs anymore, and you're basically relying on ketones to power your body, both muscles, brain, stuff like that. So it's a really cool concept. Again, it's not something that you just stop eating your sugary breakfast one day and you just switch to coffee and fat and you're just loving your life, it doesn't work that quickly because, again, your body's fat metabolism is still broken. You still need some time to make that conversion. But, my take on it is that it's not unhealthy. First off, if you still think saturated fats are unhealthy, you need to do the more nutritional research from 2010 and beyond, because all the information saying that saturated fats cause heart disease and stuff like that, that is all coming from way back in the day. And saturated fats have been vilified for 30, 40 years, and we now know that that is bad science. Excuse me. But so look into it again. Fat is not bad for you. I love the ketogenic diet. I love the idea of fat and coffee in the morning. I have been intermittent fasting and on the ketogenic diet for like 3 years now. I've never felt better. It's great for digestion. It's great for brain health. And if you have any like brain fog, you have trouble remembering things, it's really going to clear that up. A lot of people think that these things will counteract performance. A lot of people hate the idea, athletes, they hate the idea of skipping breakfast. So like, I need protein in the morning. And in some cases you do. You might want to get something like a collagen protein or something rich in branched chain amino acids, which collagen protein is not, but something like a whey protein, if you can tolerate whey, and stir that into your coffee in the morning with your fat, and that'll be good because that'll get you a little boost of branched chain amino acids. It'll basically inhibit muscle protein degradation that is basically occurring from post exercise stress. And it's going to help you fuel your muscles throughout the day. But again, you don't want to be eating a whole breakfast. You can just get away with branched chain amino acids from a good company, and stuff like that in the morning to get away from that. Again, now I'm way off topic again, so I'm going to leave it at that for Bulletproof Coffee. This idea of putting MCT oil, which is basically medium chain triglycerides, or ghee, which is clarified butter, or just grass-fed butter regularly into coffee in the morning, and either stirring it, although I recommend blending because you're going to emulsify those fats and you're going to get this nice golden creamy broth of nectar of the gods, some people call it. If you just stir it in, you're just going to get coffee and fat on top, and it's kind of weird. But so yeah, stick it in a blender. But so that's my take on Bulletproof Coffee. This idea, it pairs really, really, really well with intermittent fasting, and it pairs really, really, really well with the ketogenic diet. So if you want to try that and you want to try to go on a mitochondria healing plan, this will be the plan for you. If you want to try to lose weight, this will be the way to do it without counting calories. If you just want to be a healthier person, this is a great place to start. So I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, please comment below. You can also find me on my other social media channels. I'm Ty Jensen on Instagram. I'm Ty Jensen on Facebook. I'm really original. I know I'm Ty Jensen on here. So if you have any questions, let me know, and we'll get you set up. Have a good one.